Joining us now, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff, ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. There's a lot of dancing on this issue, especially on the GOP side, because those folks are put in a tough position of maybe voicing an opinion that goes against the president-elect's predilections in this situation. You are on the Intel Committee. How shocked would you be if today at the McCain hearing or tomorrow when they meet with the president, Intel officials told anyone that we're not sure that Russia is one of the motivators of these hacks?
That's never going to happen because the intelligence community has a level of certainty about this that you rarely see them on such significant conclusions. And look, you hear former colleagues like mine, the Vice President-elect Mike Pence, tie themselves in knots, or my colleague Darrell Issa just now, trying to avoid saying they put more faith in Julian Assange, an accused sex offender, than they do in their own intelligence agencies. And it's embarrassing, to be honest with you, because this is not healthy skepticism, as they would like to portray it. This is very unhealthy, essentially avoidance of the facts, because they don't.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, Congressman. I just want to be very clear about this. Are you sure that when the officials go to the committee hearing today or when they talk to the president-elect tomorrow, that they will say with confidence that they can prove that Russia was motivating these hacks?
Absolutely. And this is the other thing which I think people need to understand. This is not a situation where the president-elect hasn't been briefed on this. It's not as if he's going to get some new revelation when they sit down and they give a more comprehensive briefing later this week. He has been briefed. He knows better. But it's simply at odds with his own preferred version of events, and he will not accept it. So I would be astonished also if we have a very different Donald Trump after Friday. He has put so much stock in this antagonism to the conclusion that Russia was behind this. And I think it goes back to a very simple thing, and it's not unrelated to Julian Assange. And that is, during the campaign, WikiLeaks was helpful to him. Assange was helpful to him. During the campaign, the Russian hacks were helpful to him. And Donald Trump does not bite the hand that feeds him. You're with him or you're against him. But if you're with him, it doesn't matter whether you're an accused sex offender holding up in the embassy in Ecuador. He's going to be with you.
Well,
and that's a dangerous quality in a commander-in-chief.
Granting that Donald Trump may have a problem surrendering the me to the we when it comes to, taking on his role as the leader of all of us in earnest, how much of this goes back to the politicizing of this by the administration? They knew this information about Russia early on. They're blaming us in the media for not paying attention to what happened with Clapper in early October. But that's not really fair. They could have been singing, at the top of their lungs about this, and they didn't. The White House made calculations to leave it alone, and there's lots of spin game going on there why they did it. You've been critical of that move. Why?
Well, because I do think the administration should have come out earlier and much more forcefully about this. This was a foreign nation meddling in our political affairs. And I understand their reluctance. They didn't want to be seen as intervening on Secretary Clinton's behalf. But nonetheless, I felt there was an obligation to level with the American people in as thorough a way as you can about a foreign country trying to interfere in our affairs and take the heat that goes with it. And that's why Senator Feinstein and I took the extraordinary step before the Intelligence Committee, before the community, of going public with the Russian interference in our affairs. So I think that was a mistake. But nonetheless, that doesn't let Russia off the hook. It doesn't let Republicans off the hook. All Americans ought to be concerned about this meddling, and whether the reaction was too early or too late, we still need to do more about this, and I think there'll be bipartisan support for a strong sanctions package against Russia.
Speaking of bipartisan support, do you agree with the President of the United States that you Democrats should not be anxious to help Republicans change the ACA?
I do agree with him, because I think the ACA has meant millions and millions of people in America have gotten health care that wouldn't have it otherwise, and we should not be a party to basically throwing people off their health insurance. This is a matter of life and death for many Americans. So absolutely. You know what I find fascinating is here during the campaign, Donald Trump said that he had a plan to replace Obamacare and that it was going to be great and that it was going to be better health care at lower prices. And he gave us all the details in 2 words. He said, believe me. Now all of a sudden he wants Democrats and Republicans to come up with a plan, revealing that they never had a plan.
But that works both ways, right? Politicians abuse the truth sometimes. The promise during the salesmanship of the ACA was you get to keep your doctor, that rates were going to go down for everybody, health care would become cheaper. And for at least 1.7 million people in this country, it's not true. Now, I know the extent of the rate rise is exaggerated, but it's still real on a level, and people need things to be fixed within the ACA, and many of you Democrats acknowledge that as well. So are you going too far by not working with the GOP because you know the law needs to be fixed, and you're probably going to be able to keep much of what you like?
Chris, you're absolutely right. There are problems in the ACA, and for years, many of us within the Democratic Party have been advocating making changes to address exactly the things that you're mentioning. But we found no interest among the GOP because they didn't want to improve it. They didn't want to repair it.
Well, you got interest now? Because as you said, they don't have a plan. They want to keep that you have, the main features of it that people like, whether it's letting your kids stay in or lifetime caps, or no preconditions. Those were your main things, and then it just comes down to the mandate and how you pay for a lot of these things. Why not be involved in that process and try to keep ownership of the signature treatment of Obama rather than just making sure you're divorced from it?
Oh, we will be involved, and as the president said, we should extend our hand if the Republicans and the president-elect want to work with us. Absolutely, but here's where the rubber hits the road, Chris. It's very simple, and that is the president-elect says that he wants to make sure that people with pre-existing conditions can still get health care. Well, that runs into all of the other Republican priorities, which means the Republicans can't eliminate the mandate because otherwise you just buy a policy when you get sick and not before, and that doesn't work. It means that you can't eliminate also all of the subsidies or you're going to throw millions of people off their health insurance. So what the Republicans say they want is mutually incompatible, and they will not be able to overcome that very basic conflict with if they're going to cover people with pre-existing conditions, there's going to have to be a broad mandate. So, I don't see that as something that can be the subject of kind of compromise without lots of people losing their health insurance. But if they want to work on improving this, I'm all for it, and we will work with them. If they want to work on just throwing it all out and say, come bail us out, come rescue us from ourselves, we're not interested in that.
All right, Adam Schiff, thank you very much. We'll be staying on this topic. Appreciate